way through the final week of the 2023 calendar year for this show. We'll probably do something next week, but nonetheless. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Good to be with you on your Wednesday, as always, alongside producer Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn with us as well from the Everlight Solar Studio. I like our midweek episodes because it's a good recap / preview time as we get ready, as we roll on in the NFL season. And the Packers look to win their last 3 games, essentially what they're going to have to do if they want to make the playoffs. So we'll get into the last 3. I think there's 3 scenarios in which could occur, obviously, right? 3 games left, 3 scenarios in which I think those could go. But they're very specific, and I will run you through those 3 scenarios from what I think is least likely to most likely coming up in just a few minutes. We got to talk about De'Vondre Campbell and Joe Barry. Matt LaFleur spoke with the media after Monday's edition of the show, saying that Joe Barry will continue as the defensive coordinator at least through the remainder of the regular season. I also think there's 2 scenarios there in which he loses his job at the end of the regular season. I also think there's a realistic possibility that Joe Barry could save his job over the course of the last 3 weeks. I don't think it's super likely, but I do think it could be a realistic scenario. So we'll get to that in just a second. I want to start, though, with something that happened earlier in the week. So, as I mentioned earlier in the week, I moved over the weekend. I moved on Friday to my new apartment. I worked all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I took yesterday off to just get shit in order, right? Get the apartment in order. Hunter Vaughn is a terrific human being. He's a great guy. Although he has tiny hands, he's a great guy. And he saw me jacking water bottles from the basketball tournament.
We were stuffing them in your backpack.
Yeah, because the tap water not very tasty at my new apartment, so I just needed something until I figured out what I was going to do on my day off on Tuesday. So you on Monday bring me in a Brita, what do you call that? Like a pitcher?
Pitcher, yep.
And then a bunch of filters for the Brita.
Yes.
You set me up for a year.
Yeah, it was a wedding gift from my sister.
Oh,
to
I
my
didn't know
wife
this
and
part. I
Yeah.
didn't know this part.
And
so this is a re-gifted wedding gift.
Yeah, it was just we just didn't really use it, and that.
So you put this on my desk on Monday.
Yep.
And I grab it and I bring it home, or at least I thought I was bringing it home. And I realized when I pulled into my parking lot on Monday, I didn't have it. I was like, uh-oh, I think I know what happened here. So I texted you, 6:21 p.m. on Monday. I have a confession to make. I'm 95% sure I left the Brita on top of my trunk and never put it in my car. I just got home. Hopefully it's still in the office. You didn't respond.
No, I was so mad.
Okay, would you like to elaborate on that?
Because I had to convince my wife to give up this Brita, even though we don't use the Brita. I had to convince Sarah to, let's give it to Strouf.
Yeah.
And as she said, she's like, he's a grown adult. He can just buy one. I'm like,
I agree with that.
But I'm trying to be nice. We're not using it. It's just taking up space in the cupboard, so I'll just give it to Strouf. And then I get that text from you that you may have put it on the back of your car and then run it over. I was ready to come in because I worked from home yesterday.
I was going to ask if you worked in the office yesterday. Yeah.
I was ready to come in and just light you up if I didn't see that sitting on your desk.
So I left it on my desk.
Yes.
So
luckily
my 5% was correct. I was really worried it wasn't going to be there. So I made a run around the parking garage the other day.
Why wouldn't you just come into the office?
Forgot my badge. And it was after work hours, so nobody was here. And it wasn't in the parking garage. So I thought one of 2 things happened. Number one, it fell off on didn't fall off of my car until I hit the highway, or best case scenario, it's still here, and it was still here. So all is good. I just remember I was holding it when I walked out on Friday, but I must have set it down and forgot to pick it back up. Because I had it in my hand, I had my backpack, my coat on. I thought okay. So anyway, all that ends well is well, or whatever the phrase is, something like that. All right, let's talk about sports. So De'Vondre Campbell, the Packers linebacker, coming off a pretty rough game on Sunday, and he was heavily criticized, right? I mean, that the whole defense was. The defense played horribly against Tampa Bay, allowing a perfect passer rating to Baker Mayfield and taking a second straight loss after losing the previous week to Tommy DeVito. De'Vondre Campbell has not been healthy this year. He's missed a few games. He just hasn't reverted back to the all-pro status we saw from him his first year in Green Bay, which, understandable, not shocking, didn't really expect him to be an all-pro in 2023. Expected him to man the middle. Whoa, live radio! Would you like to say it, please? Show some manners.
Bless you. Why didn't you turn off your mic?
I did, and then I clicked on accident. So,
way to go.
There you go. Live radio, podcast, whatever this is. So, anyway, De'Vondre Campbell. How do you pivot out of there? How do you pivot from sneezing?
You don't.
Okay. De'Vondre Campbell, been hurt this year, tweets yesterday. Not going out of my way anymore. And I'm not playing through injuries anymore because when shit goes wrong, they always use it against you. I'm treating everyone accordingly and giving them the same energy they're giving me. Focus on yourself and your mental. 59. You owe it to yourself. So De'Vondre Campbell, somewhere in the middle of that tweet, goes from first person to third person because 59 is the number he wears. He's talking to himself in that final sentence and essentially saying he's not going to play injured. And that is kind of what we think is going on with Jair Alexander. Jair Alexander dealing with his second shoulder injury in 3 years, hasn't played in the last 6 weeks, was never placed on IR, has been practicing all week and then not playing. Didn't travel to New York last week, didn't play late scratch against Tampa this past week when they played at Lambeau. So you anticipate that maybe De'Vondre Campbell going to deal with some of the same, although he hasn't been on the injury report the last 2 weeks. So he's been practicing fully healthy the last 2 weeks. So what is happening in Green Bay that now we know for sure? One, De'Vondre Campbell says it himself, maybe two and Jair are hurt, but maybe cleared, but not playing. Is that a lack of faith in Joe Barry? Is that a lack of faith in the training staff? And God forbid do we bring up Martellus Bennett and what happened with him and what he said after he left Green Bay, which was kind of around the lines of, yeah, they wanted me to play when I wasn't 100%. And that wasn't a LaFleur thing, and it really wasn't a Dr. McKenzie thing, but it was more of a philosophy within the building situation. This is just a really bad look all around, right? No matter how you frame it, whether it's the fans, whether it's the coaches, whether it's Matt LaFleur, whether it's the training staff, all of it is bad. But my question is, why is this the route De'Vondre Campbell goes? Why is him being very public and saying when blank goes wrong, they use it against you? Why is that the angle De'Vondre Campbell is taking? Well, number one, it's clear winning would help this, but they're losing. They have a losing record. This is a team that is looking on the outside looking in all of a sudden after a nice win streak. Interesting. I don't really know what to make of De'Vondre Campbell tweeting this yesterday. Not going out of my way anymore, and I'm not playing through injuries anymore. And then third person, focus on yourself and your mental. 59, you owe it to yourself. So what does that mean? I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know what it means. I feel like Brian Windhorst over here. What is going on in Green Bay? What is going on in Green Bay? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. It's very frustrating now. Because De'Vondre Campbell, a guy that was an All-Pro 2 years ago, is now like, it's for 6 and 8, whatever. Hunter, you got something on this? You got any tell? I don't know what to make of this.
I mean, first, I just love this for De'Vondre. Like, take care of yourself.
You love it?
Yes, I love it. I want players, because the window is so small in the NFL where you can make money, you need to protect yourself.
I don't disagree with that at all. I understand your point there, and I agree with that. But I don't know if that's what's happening here. Because everybody's hurt in Week 15. Everybody is. Nobody is playing healthy in the NFL. It's a very physical sport. When you play 17 games in a year, nobody's playing healthy. And if you're not on the injury report at all, and you're saying, I'm not playing injured anymore, there's clearly a fundamental issue there then, right? Because you are injured. If you're saying, I'm injured, but the team is not saying you're injured, that's an issue from a team perspective. But why are they saying you're not hurt then? Right? Because I don't think the Packers are hiding injuries. They had like 87 guys in the injury report over the course of the last
They ran out of ink when they were printing it off, so
right?
he didn't show up.
I mean, that's not the issue. It seems like they're pretty open about injuries, overly open. Jaden Reed's got like 17 of them. He's got a toe, he's got a chest, he's got an ankle. He's on the injury report every week, and he's playing. And I get he's a rookie, and maybe the mindset is different. But so I'm with you in terms of like I appreciate players taking care of themselves. I like that. But I don't understand I'm not on the injury report, but now after we lost and got absolutely embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home, I'm going to take care of myself. Sure, go for it. I advocate for that. But it just seems like you're using this as a scapegoat, essentially, right? We got our asses kicked and people are pissed off and want our defensive coordinator fired. So I'm good. It almost reminds me, and it's obviously not quite to the level of, I'm blanking on the safety's name from the Bills a couple of years ago, who just called it quits at halftime, right?
I can't remember his name.
They were getting smoked, and midway through the game, he's just like, yeah, I'm done.
Is this an easier way for
Vontae Davis, by the
him?
way.
Yeah. Is this an easier way for him to just control the narrative
Yes.
around him?
For sure.
And that's
for
just
sure.
what this is?
Yeah, it's for sure him taking, people are criticizing me for having my worst game as a Packer, which it probably was on Sunday. And it seems excuse driven by me from my perspective, right? Like it almost seems like, hey, this is why I played bad, even though I wasn't on the injury report, I'm injured, which, like I said, everybody is hurt in some degree. At week, whatever that was, 15. But he wasn't listed as injured, right? Because we've had this. Everybody's heard this. Are you hurt or are you injured? Right? If you're hurt, everybody's hurt. Are you injured? Then you're listed and questionable, and their status is indicated towards you. He's using the term injured. He hasn't been on the injury report. I haven't seen one this week for Packers injury report. I'm curious if he's on it because maybe that would make sense. Then maybe he tweaks something. Within the last couple of days, but he hasn't been on the injury report the last couple of weeks. I don't think or last week he wasn't. I'm looking at the one from Thursday of last week. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 names on it. De'Vondre Campbell's is not one of them. So we'll see. We will see with De'Vondre Campbell and if he even plays Sunday against the Carolina Panthers, one of the worst teams in football. Obviously, a game that the Packers should win. But we've said that in other games, including last week against the Giants. The last week I was not feeling good about the game. I never said they should win. I thought they would. They didn't. This is the game the Packers should win on Christmas Eve against the Carolina Panthers. So we will talk more about that game coming up on Friday as well as Sunday when Josh DiMaggio and Colin Russo are with me on Green Bay Game Day leading up to kickoff on that one. So Joe Barry, the situation continues with him. As Matt LaFleur announces Monday, he will be the defensive coordinator the rest of the year, which we expected. Don't love it at all. Joe Barry might become Matt LaFleur's downfall as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers because I do think there was a realistic scenario in which Joe Barry could save his job in the last 3 weeks of the season, which scares the hell out of me, man. Because this guy sucks. I mean, we could be pretty clear about Joe Barry in Green Bay. His tenure has sucked. I don't think there's a better word to describe it. But you got 3 pretty bad offenses coming up the next 3 weeks. Carolina, Minnesota, Chicago. If we go back a couple weeks in the year, if we go 55 weeks back in time, we thought Joe Barry was canned at the end of the 2022 season. And then they hold opponents to 20 and 17 consistently for the last couple of weeks in the season, including 20 points in a loss in Week 18 to the Detroit Lions. And that's usually a sign that your defense is doing its job. Specifically, last year, when you're an offense-driven team, if you're holding opponents to 17 and 20 points, you should win those games. Joe Barry saved his job in the final stretch of the season last year. I think if the Packers go 3-0, which I don't think is the top scenario, a realistic scenario over the course of the last 3 weeks, and they make the playoffs, I think Joe Barry's job could be safe. I'm not saying it is, but I think it could be, specifically if the defense steps up again. Now, in that same realm, the last 3 games for the Packers, as I mentioned, Panthers, Vikings, Bears, I think there's 3 scenarios in which the Packers, it happens, right? I think number 1 is they lose the Vikings, it's over. I think number 2 is they win the next 2, Carolina, Minnesota, they lose the final one to Chicago. And the least likely scenario is they lose this weekend, and it's over. I think it's about 90% the Packers miss the playoffs, Joe Barry's gone. I think it's about 10% the Packers make the playoffs, win the wild card game, Joe Barry's safe. That's kind of where my head's at right now. Those are the scenarios I see remaining for the Packers over the course of the last 3 weeks. I want to talk to Josh DiMaggio about this, who's coming up next. Both about the optics of Matt LaFleur and the scenarios that are upcoming over the course of the next couple of weeks. So he's going to join us coming up next as we'll talk all things Packers. I also, during my day off yesterday, I watched the Pat McAfee show in full for the first time ever. Oddly enough, on an Aaron Rodgers Tuesday. And boy, does he bug the hell out of me, man. And nobody is more annoyed over the course of the last three years by Aaron Rodgers than Josh DiMaggio, who joins us next. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. As always, our featured conversation on Mr. Relevant today with our buddy Joshy DiMaggio from ESPN Milwaukee. Brought to you by my friends at Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, and award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. Everything they do it better than everybody else, and it's local. Why would you not support local? I had a little bit of the single malt whiskey last night. Had a glass while I watched some college basketball. It was great. Highly recommend. As the holidays are coming up, make sure you elevate your holiday get tailgates, anything you got going on with Door County Distillery. Check out their website, doorcountydistillery.com, to find the retailer nearest you, as well as a huge list of unique cocktail recipes that's at their website, doorcountydistillery.com. Let's talk to our buddy, Josh DiMaggio. All right, I've had 3 cups of coffee today. I sneezed mid-rant in the opener, so this is going to be a fun conversation. Josh DiMaggio, Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, weekdays 7 to 9 on ESPN Milwaukee, joins us now. Joshy, you made quite the face when I said I've had 3 cups of coffee today. I'm okay, though. How you doing? Oh, we're not hearing you. That's always good. Hot start, Hunter. What'd you mess up back there, bud? Why can't I hear Joshy?
I don't know because I have everything up.
Fantastic. All right, Joshy, just give me a head nod real quick. Yes or no, have you had this issue with Adam Schefter before, who you have on weekly on Jen, Game, and Chewy? Okay, you have. So, okay, you feel for Hunter right now, or do you blame Hunter right now? Okay, you feel for Hunter. That's good. Via head nod. So we'll hash out the Josh DiMaggio audio situation for a moment, as I'll just rehash my 3 scenarios for the Packers. I think the most likely is they win the next 2, they lose to Chicago Week 18. I think that is the most likely, which would make Jim Rutledge completely insufferable for like 9 months straight. I think that is the most likely scenario for the Packers. I think the second most likely is they win this week, lose to Minnesota, and it doesn't really matter what happens in Week 18. I think the least likely scenario is they lose to Carolina and they win out the rest of the way. There's also probably a 4th scenario in which they go 3-0. And they make the playoffs, and they win the wild card game, and Joe Barry saves his job. That's probably also the least likely. So we got Joshy. Where are we at here? Love live stuff. Josh, yes, no. Say a word for me.
I think Josh disconnected here. Oh, and now he's reconnected.
And now I hear him. Joshy.
Hey,
what the hell happened there?
I don't know. My computer just apparently doesn't have the microphone working, but I'm here and I'm ready to chat. I'm concerned about your 3 cups of coffee. You already have enough energy for everyone in that office there. So I hope we can keep things responsibly on the rails here.
Well, that's usually the opposite of my goal, to be real honest with you. I don't like keeping it on the rails. I like going all over the place.
Yeah, me either. I was lying.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you were. So let's start here. Let's start with a tweet you sent out that I totally agreed with, and I wanted to dive into, and I know we'll do it more Sunday on Green Bay game day. But you tweeted essentially Matt LaFleur losing the fan base by retaining Joe Barry the remainder of the season. 3 games left. He's going to keep Joe Barry as the defensive coordinator. You think that you tweeted, Matt's dangerously close to losing the fan base in a way I'm not sure he'll be able to recover from. What do you mean by that? Because I think this is probably the smartest move, despite not being very smart, but by retaining Joe Barry. It's just continuity the remainder of the season. But you think he'll lose the fan base by retaining him for the final 3 games. Why is that?
I think if you are Matt LaFleur, you have gotten to a point in the season where everyone's expectations have changed so much from what they were back in October that when you see that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, against Tommy Cutlets in New York, and the one thing we can all point to is the defense seeming not only unprepared, but completely incapable of making defensive stops. So when I say losing the fan base, like, people want to see change and want to see things improve. Mm-hmm. The final stretch here has games that everyone thinks can be winnable, but if they're lost and Joe Barry is retained, and say something happens similar to what happened last week, but with Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, which is far-fetched, but I would have said Tommy DeVito and the Giants beating the Packers is far-fetched. Yep. If there's no change seen here, and we kiss the playoffs goodbye this week, I think it's a massive mistake to let this linger on and lets people start to think, like, can we trust this guy as a head coach? I don't think anyone questions him in his ability to run an offense. But being the head coach of a team and making tough decisions and kind of setting the record straight and changing things. We give him so much credit for the way he adjusted things and said we're done making excuses, done being youth, like the youth is done being an excuse. Well, the defense has been an excuse that they've gotten away with multiple times throughout the season.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, not only this season, but every season, right?
Right.
And it's just it's incredibly frustrating that this continues to linger as a fan. And it seems like it's now kind of dribbling into, if you will, like the locker room with De'Vondre Campbell's vague, weird tweet from yesterday that I read earlier in the show. I don't think Matt LaFleur is losing the locker room, but I'm pretty sure Joe Barry has, at least to a point. At least to a point, which is incredibly frustrating. They continue to let this linger. And I hate the argument of interim because I think you could literally grab me or you off the street and we'd bring more ideas than Joe Barry has and just be a little bit more engaged than maybe Joe Barry has. And I get he's a scapegoat, and you can make the argument for player execution or the lack thereof over the course of the last couple games, but it's just time for something new. And I'm not ready to say that at head coach, but I certainly have been saying that for a year at defensive coordinator. But do you agree with me that there could be a realistic – if they win out, here's what I think. This is like my worst fear with Joe Barry. They win out. They're the 6th seed. They go to Detroit. They win. And they're one of the last 8 teams standing in the NFL. Can you move on from them?
Yeah, I mean, just a few weeks ago, Matt LaFleur was like puffing his chest out about the defense. And we were all pointing to things where we're like, well, the competition hasn't been that great. They've still given up tons of yards. Like, there's a lot of things when you look at defense. People point to points against and scoring defense, which is obviously very important. But when you look at every other metric for the Packers, they are amongst the worst. But it doesn't seem like those things matter, at least publicly, to Matt LaFleur. When you look at the defense objectively and from what we can all see, like, they give up first downs at a rate very few other teams in the NFL do. They're either the worst or second to worst at that. And I 100% believe that I think these last 3 games can serve as a sort of audition. Now, I think it's more likely than not, especially when you kind of do the Aaron Rodgers thing and start to parse his words, parse Matt LaFleur's words, where he kind of indicated in a way you could read it as, like, there's a change coming. But as we all know, with Maurice Drayton just a few years ago, he tried to keep the guy on staff. Like, Is he going to try and make Joe Barry the linebackers coach or somewhere else? Like, with Matt LaFleur and his reluctance to fire people, I think it's part of the equation that has to be factored in a way that I necessarily wouldn't with other head coaches at this point. So I'm in lockstep with you. I think it's more likely than not he's fired, but it's definitely part of the consideration, and I think something we have to factor in.
I think you're totally right. And Matt LaFleur, I think he's a good head coach, but he's soft in that regard. So that's the other part that I'm worried about, but we will see as time rolls on. You just mentioned something that I want to point out. So you mentioned the parsing words, and I've noticed that given our jobs and where we have to read into things and where we're trying to read the tea leaves, it has bled into my personal life, Josh. I overthink what everybody says now, and I think it's really starting to mess with my brain and some of my personal relationships. Does this happen to you as well? Because it's been happening to me, and I'm like, whoa, you're not Aaron Rodgers. You're just like a normal human being. I don't need to overthink this that much.
I don't know if I do that. There's definitely people, everyone has people in their life where it's like you got to parse the words, you got to figure it out. The one thing that has happened in my house and with my family members is like they kind of remind me you're not doing a radio show right now because it kind of just takes over everything, where I start like throwing in topics to kind of keep the conversation rolling, which is great around the holidays and when everyone's in the mood.
Bingo, yeah.
But like it's really hard not to fall into the mechanics of doing radio and like, you know, kind of yes-anding and continuing whatever is going on with your family members.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. I've kind of always been that way, though, where it's just like, Alex, you can shut up now, dude. Like, we can just sit here and watch the Christmas
long
movie.
Soliloquies.
Yeah. Especially, I've noticed I'm also not enjoyable to watch Packers games with. Because then I'm going to start rattling off stats that nobody needs to know.
Right.
Just like, I threw this out 3 times this week. Might as well tell Grandpa the Jaden Reed stat of the day.
Yeah, I've taken to basically when it comes to watching Packers games, I just keep my mouth shut because I hear a lot of inaccuracies, and if I were to spend my whole time correcting who it was, I would be the worst person ever. And at times I can already be that person, but that's intentional, so I can't let it leak out when I'm not trying to be annoying.
No, I love that. I'm with you on that. So I watched the Pat McAfee show yesterday, Josh. I had the day off. I was building a nightstand during Aaron Rodgers Tuesday.
Huh.
I just about threw it out my window.
Yeah, you don't strike me as a handy guy.
Well, no. I made it really well. That was rude. That seemed
I love that that's where Josh went. Not that Aaron pissed him off. That Strouf, you suck at what you're trying to do.
I built it in like 20
Yes.
minutes. And then I just continued drinking my cup of mud and listening to Aaron Rodgers spew out bullshit. But like, I built that I made that nightstand my thing, dude. That was really rude and not necessary. I didn't like that very much.
You just don't seem like a guy that knows his way around a ratchet set or a screwdriver. It's like, do you know what's the difference?
I had the level out. I was hanging shelves. I had
You
the
don't have a
level out.
level.
I
That's
did. I had the
lying.
level out. No, I'm not lying to you. I'm wearing different pants. I was going to say I was wearing sweatpants yesterday. I had like a little level thing in my pocket the whole day. I went for a walk and picked up Chinese food last night, and I meant to pull out my wallet. I pulled out the level. So anyway, am I handy? No, but can I put together an Amazon nightstand? Yes. My point was Aaron Rodgers frustrated me yesterday because he's talking about how he's going to play past 24 and how he's going to be a good recruiter for the New York Jets. And I'm just sitting there being like, yeah, I've heard this before. And it usually doesn't work out to the way that New York Jets fans probably think it's going to.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything with Aaron Rodgers so far this season, aside from the injury, has played out sort of exactly how you would have expected. He's gotten everything he's wanted. He's controlled the conversation. He's been allowed to dictate his own terms. Mm-hmm. The way the Jets gave Aaron Rodgers the thing he really wanted from Green Bay, which was everyone kind of just praising him in a way that was, I mean, frankly, off-putting to listen to after spending so much time with Aaron Rodgers. Like, they were talking about him like he was like Incredible Hulk, and he was going to be the first guy to ever come back from injury. And it's like, what? You're feeding, it's so clearly feeding an ego and so clearly, like, doing a fan service to somebody in a way that, like, that's not really what you should be doing with your football team. And he's going to come back. He's going to play. It's going to be this miraculous story. He's going to run out with another flag on the opening day. And we're going to have to – I really want to see how it plays out.
It was 9/11, Josh.
Yeah, well, we know what him and Deshaun Kaiser talked about 9/11. So
good point.
That kind of falls on deaf ears. Like, they let him be Mr. America, you know, the Incredible Hulk. They gave in to everything to him.
You kind of have to for that guy, though, don't you?
Yeah, it is part of the deal.
As much as you're over it.
As much as it's part of the deal, that's the reason you end up with Alan Lazard being inactive and Billy Turner and Delvin Cook and Randall Cobb. Like, you got to find where to draw the lines, and the Jets did none of that, and they're reaping what they sowed. Like, obviously, if he plays, it's a world of difference. They're probably a playoff team. They're not close to a Super Bowl team, no. And I don't think even next year, unless, like, a Devontae Adams miracle happens for them, they're not going to be able to build this into what they need to. The guy's off a ruptured ACL, Achilles.
Yeah.
Those things just don't – you're not the same person, especially at 40 years old.
He claims he is. He claims he's better.
He's claimed a lot of things.
Have you ever – not have you ever, but would you ever try ayahuasca?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the whole, like, being hours and hours of, like, vomiting and being with a shaman, that whole stuff's not totally desirable, but I think it's something that can help a certain – person if they're willing to have it, even though I think a lot of the stuff Aaron Rodgers said regarding it is a lot of bull honky. To put it in a way, I think a lot of that is, you know, it's kind of you're looking for that so you get out of it. But I mean, studies show stuff like that, and certain psychedelics in the right setting can be beneficial to, you know, mental health and things along those lines.
Yeah, that's fair. In terms of my ESPN Wisconsin personality power rankings of who would do the best in a darkness retreat, you would be number one.
I think I would do pretty well in that. I'm pretty good at being alone. I like to be alone. I often try and set up time to be alone. The thing is, when I'm alone, I'm generally like,
time out. You set up time to be alone. What does that mean?
oh yeah. If I know somebody in the house is gonna be somewhere, I make sure I cancel whatever plans I might have had. Like those are all. If I know, hey, there's this event going on that everyone's going to, guess who's staying home? This guy right here. I could be happy coming home from work, locking myself in my room, and just hanging out every day. Now that's not reality, but that's where I thrive.
Fair. So the other thing I wanted to bring up with you is, did you see the Richard Mendenhall tweet this week?
I did. Yes, of course.
So I think his premise is kind of fun, and like I've seen Pat McAfee and some other people break down like who would be on each roster. I'm just blown away by the quote, "I'm better than your GOAT," end quote, from like a pretty average running back.
Yeah, there was a few things that kind of stuck with me. I think, like, obviously, whenever you bring race into things, it gets very sensitive. Some people took it very funny, and it was entertaining to see how some people handled it. But I also noticed he was like bitter about that fumble in the Super Bowl. Still, like 13 years later, like that somehow was connected to his whole like. The Clay Matthews, when he hit him in the backfield, and like he claimed just last year that fumble wasn't his fault because he got hit so quickly. It was like a strip sack of sorts. So I don't know where all those things lined up and what exactly happened with Richard Mendenhall, because I thought he had quite a good NFL career. He won a Super Bowl with that same exact team that he lost one with.
Yep.
So I did enjoy some of it. I did enjoy the talk of who's going to play defensive back, because we had
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, the Whites had to dip into college football and go to the Iowa kid to play cornerback. Like nobody's if we bring him back, Jason Sehorn. Who else? Who else is even available to play in that sort of position? I'm not worried about the offense. The offense is going to be great. I am very
okay. You're going to need Alec Ingold playing fullback, though, right?
Yeah, or Kyle Juszczyk. Get a little multiple, somebody who catch the backfield. But like Christian McCaffrey sets you on a great point. You got Travis Kelce. You got George Kittle. Like I like what we can do there. It's probably going to be a grinded out type of style. Keep away. You know, this is the type of game where the Packers lose so clearly, where they play the other team runs the ball for 250 yards and they play keep away. That's the type of ball the Whites would have to play.
See, I think you go triple option here with Taysom Hill at quarterback.
I think you might need him at corner though.
He can play both ways.
He might need to
play both ways.
Yeah,
he might need. I mean, that defensive backfield is just going to get shredded by whoever the other team has. Like probably Lamar, right? Because I read that like Mahomes is eliminated. He's not eligible. So you probably got Lamar versus who would play quarterback for the Whites? Rodgers, Burrow, Herbert.
Burrow, Herbert, someone along those lines.
Purdy, maybe he's leading the MVP race.
Purdy could do a great job of handing the ball off.
Because you have McCaffrey in the backfield, and if you have Juszczyk, you got the entirety of the 49ers in shotgun. Yeah, I like it. We'd get shredded. That's what I've decided.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because the offensive line, although it's solid, is just going to get destroyed. Because the up front for Mendenhall's squad is Mendenhall the head coach?
Yeah, Myles Garrett's going to be a real problem.
Yeah, he would be.
What's that?
I said, is Mendenhall the head coach? How would this work? Because I assume he's not suiting up.
I don't know if he would be able to handle the possibility of turnovers with the way he's still worried about a 13-year-old fumble.
That's a good point.
I guess he would be.
That's a good point. All right. Packers winning on Sunday, Josh?
God, I hope so.
Is it sad that you're not like, oh, yeah? Like, I expected a patented Josh DiMaggio. Oh, yeah.
I was, oh, yeah, about the Giants. I was, oh, yeah, about the Buccaneers. And I just have no confidence that who's to say what happens? Like, Bryce Young is fairly mobile. Could he run like Tommy DeVito all over the Packers defense? Is Adam Thielen going to be streaking right behind De'Vondre Campbell for 135 yards on the defense? It's certainly. I'm not worried about the offense. The offense is going to score. The offense is going to do well, even though the Panthers' defense is pretty good. Yeah. But I gave up giving predictions in October, and then I started doing them again when I started feeling myself. When you get the 3 wins during the season that the Packers got.
Sounds about right.
There's the confidence came back. Like, oh, there's no way they lose this game. This team's giving up 69 sacks. Their offensive line's terrible. You should win, and you should win convincingly, but if the Packers win 21-17, does anybody go, wow, that was shocking?
Yeah, no. I've just come to accept that I don't understand this football team whatsoever.
I mean, I understand it perfectly well. The offense is inconsistent and growing. They can put on quite a performance. The defense is run by a person who gets out. He gets outbrained. He gets tricked into every situation. Teams know what to do to put Joe Barry and the defense in the worst possible situation, and Joe Barry doesn't know what to do to fix it. You can force Joe Barry into the worst possible coverage against whatever you want to run, and you can do it over and over and over again.
Yeah, he's probably not fully incompetent. He's just like mostly incompetent.
Yeah. He's not great at adjusting. Not a think on his feet guy.
No,
I don't think he'd do.
That was
a
knock on LaFleur for a long time too, though, wasn't it? It was. Yeah, true. I think that was a LaFleur issue for a while too, though, wasn't it? Like he never made adjustments.
Yeah, that certainly was a LaFleur thing, and it's just carrying over. I am very interested in the fact that Matt LaFleur says he's going to take a bigger role in the defense. Yeah. Like, is he putting his reputation on the line here with this? Like
that's what that kind of seemed like. But then he clarified and said it was just communication breakdowns. So who does that stem from? It has to stem from the top.
Communication stuff. What does that even mean?
No, it's just vague. It's just vague.
That's just like, is he gonna say, "Hey Joe, we need to come out of the too high shell here. They're killing us across the middle."
Yeah.
Like, was he not doing that earlier? Did he just let that continue to happen?
So we'll do this again on Sunday on Green Bay Game Day, but we do a segment on Green Bay Game Day called "Who Do You Trust?" And do you trust Matt LaFleur right now, Josh?
I trust Matt LaFleur as a play caller,
but you don't trust him as a head coach.
I don't have enough to prove it. I want to look back at the 13-3 seasons, but I also look back and I see the same exact issues on the defense with Joe Barry that have carried out throughout those points. I don't know if he's got what it takes to be a consistent head coach when you don't have a Hall of Famer, which is a great thing to have as a head coach, and it's hard to figure out what matters, because obviously he worked well with Aaron Rodgers and his personality and kind of kept things as much as he could together. So that is a head coach thing, but his defense, listen to those guys. Those aren't guys that are like bought in and having a great time. So I'd say I trust Joe Barry more than I trust Matt LaFleur, because I trust Joe Barry to do exactly what he's done every single week, no matter what the situation is.
I think that's well said. Oh, man. This is stressful. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm stressed out after talking to you.
This is fun. Come on.
No. You've made me stressed out because I think Sunday might be bad.
Am I sick and twisted for kind of enjoying this season more than I even enjoyed like the 13-3 working to the bye? Because we knew what Aaron Rodgers was. We kind of knew what to expect.
Yeah.
This is so new. I'm having a great time.
A great time is such an overstatement. Sick and twisted for saying it's a great time. I think enjoying the roller coaster, I'd be like, yeah, that's not sick and twisted. That's understandable because you don't really know what to expect. But you're like, yeah, losing rocks, dude. I'm having so much fun making a star out of Tommy DeVito and Baker Mayfield on his 4th team in 3 years.
See, this is the content radio brain, and that's why you're enjoying it. Because it's like doing Wisconsin College Game Day. Have way more fun when the Badgers lose.
Right,
I want them to win.
There's more to react to.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing here.
But with this, like, I was having a lot of fun when they were winning 3 in a row. I think our audience was having a lot of fun still listening to us when we're celebrating wins. I go into full breakdown panic mode when they get cut up by Tommy DeVito and Baker Mayfield posts a perfect passer rating. Like, this isn't fun for me as a fan.
I don't know. I have fun when the Cowboys collapse as a fan. This is fun riding the roller coaster. You just lock in and just go for the ride.
Strap me in, baby.
I'm an incredibly optimistic guy. Right? I'm optimistic Alex. I made a whole spiel about it on Monday's show, talking about how this offense still looked pretty good in a horrible loss. And I can be optimistic about Jordan Love and the future of the offense and some of these young pass catchers. But I can't be optimistic when Baker freaking Mayfield is throwing for 4 touchdowns and almost 400 yards at Lambeau Field. How can you enjoy that? That's not enjoyable. That's hell, Josh. That's literal hell.
To me, it's quite simple. Like, the ship on Joe Barry has sailed for me. So even wasting time getting mad at the performance against Tommy Cutlets.
But it hasn't sailed. Matt LaFleur might still not fire this guy.
Right, but it sailed for all of us. We all know what's going on here, and it's just we're waiting for everyone else to join us on. There isn't a Packer fan. Have you heard one? I've listened to a lot of ESPN Wisconsin radio, and I haven't heard one person say, hey, I think Joe Barry's getting a raw deal here. He's not getting a fair shake. So if he's retained, I can say, well, I should not take this team seriously until Joe Barry's fired, and that's kind of how I'm treating it. I've loved to watch Jordan Love. That's been an absolute blast, seeing the progression, seeing the guy like the pill slings. I go nuts for the pill slings.
The pill slings.
But the defense isn't what it is. It's like, hey, yeah, they're bad. They're going to be bad. They're going to look good for a week, and then they're going to put in the most jaw-dropping, pathetic performance you've ever seen.
Pill slings is your phrase, but I always feel like it sounds like you're popping drugs.
Yeah, it does. The football looks like a pill, and you sling it. But there are people who sling pills, and they do it not black market style. So we talk strictly football here, Alex.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. Excuse me for bringing up drugs for the second time in the 30 minutes you've been on the show.
Yeah.
You know where my mind's at right now. All right, Joshy DiMaggio. You hear him 7 to 9 every weekday morning on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, but you will hear him beginning at 9 a.m. this Sunday alongside myself and Colin Russo on Green Bay Game Day. Did you sign up for this? Did you volunteer for this? Were you asked?
I volunteered my services throughout the holidays. I said, hey, I am going to be on vacation starting on Friday through the new year, but I would love to fill in wherever I can. And they said, hey, want to join Strouf and Russo? And I said, those two bozos, I'll class up the joint.
You'll class up the joint. I think you're going to bring it down a notch, but nonetheless, it's going to be the wackiest edition of Green Bay Game Day we've ever done, which I'm very much looking forward to. Josh DiMaggio, you're the best dude. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me.
It's Josh DiMaggio. Get him on Twitter at Josh_DiMaggio. He counts his pill slings. So if you want to track the pill slings, which I think there will be at least 3 of, that's my prediction on Christmas Eve against the Carolina Panthers. I love Jordan Love, man. He's the big positive of this Packers season. The rest, not so much, especially the inconsistencies. But to hear Joshy's perspective on, I'm loving this. I'm having so much fun. It is more fun to cheer for the unexpected because you kind of expected this season to maybe go poorly. And it did, and then it didn't, and now it is again. So it's been the roller coaster ride. But you know me. I expect championships. I like winning. And there hasn't been a ton of that to root for the last couple of weeks. Hopefully we got something on Sunday coming up to root for.
Do you ever laugh at, black comedy, dark humor kind of stuff?
Yeah, I love dark humor.
Yeah, so it's the same kind of a thing.
If I was somebody watching me, so let me put it this. So let me De'Vondre Campbell it for a moment.
Okay.
Let me go into the fourth person and be a viewer of me. I would get pure entertainment out of me, having mental breakdowns on Mondays after losses the Packers shouldn't have lost. I went on a 17-minute rant uninterrupted on Monday, which you obviously heard, about Joe Barry strictly. I didn't prepare anything. I just walked in and started talking. That's what happened on Monday. As somebody that maybe isn't a fan of the Packers, which I know we have a few people that listen to the show that aren't Packers fans, I'd get pure enjoyment out of my breakdowns because I have so much expectation for this team that I get so damn frustrated, especially after they beat the Lions and the Chiefs on national TV in back-to-back weeks. This team's rolling. They're peaking at the right time. They're going to be the team nobody wants to see. I said that. Those are real things I said. I also said if the Packers don't make the playoffs, it's a failure. I actually said that at one point, and I meant it. I also said the season's over at one point. So you can't trust a damn word out of my mouth But am I entertaining when I have full-blown breakdowns and, like, I'm depressed and freaking out about the Packers' future this season? Yes. Yes, there's enjoyment to get out of it, of course.
But why don't you just enjoy doing that then? That's fun.
Because it's not fun. Do you not
Yes,
see
it
my blood
is.
pressurizing right now?
That
This is a team that has reverted back to stinking. How is that fun?
Because you know that there's going to be an up again. And then the best part is like on a roller coaster.
But I don't know that.
But it will, because it always does. Every single NFL team has ups and downs. Every team in sports does. And if you know that, and you know, okay, we're on the downswing on the roller coaster.
But there's no guarantee there's an up. There's zero guarantee of that.
There is. Because time is a flat circle, Alex, and it will come back.
Sorry.
It always does.
I forgot my tinfoil hat today, Hunter. Unbelievable. Thanks again to Josh DiMaggio. We'll hear more from him coming up on Sunday. Hunter Vaughn, tiny hands on the controls. We'll take one final break when we come back. What Strouf learned, we'll stick to the NFL. And here's the upswing. Time is a flat circle. That's next. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Well, you just heard us talk about it there. Josh DiMaggio, Colin Russo, who will be on Friday's edition of Mr. Relevant, and me this Sunday morning beginning at 9 a.m. It's hard to say that with a straight face because I know it's just going to be the goofiest edition of Green Bay Game Day we've ever seen. Green Bay Game Day coming to you live beginning at 9 a.m. on 620 WTMJ, 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee, 100.5 ESPN in Madison this Sunday morning as we get you ready for Packers-Panthers. Rob Demovsky will join us from Carolina at 9:30. Jason Wilde will join us for the entire 10 a.m. hour as we lead you up to the game of the century, Panthers-Packers on Christmas Eve this Sunday beginning at 9 a.m. Time now for What I Learned. So Monday night, I'm chilling out, relaxing, and maxing all cool. I did not shoot any b-ball outside the school. As I was watching Monday Night Football, the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles. And what I've learned, which maybe we've learned in other seasons, but more so this season than any other season, is that the parity in the NFL is wild this year. Anybody can beat anybody. And that was proof on Monday night as the Drew Lock-led Seattle Seahawks. Drew Lock, who hasn't played in forever, comes out and leads a game-winning drive and beats the Philadelphia Eagles, who some viewed as the best team in the NFC for a lot of time this year, except when their losing streak began 3 weeks ago, and they fell to the San Francisco 49ers 42-19. They then lose to the Cowboys, and now this week they lose to the Seahawks. So the Eagles have gone from the final undefeated team in the league at 5-0, and having at one point, I believe, a 10-1 record, are now 10-4. This is a team that in December has not won a football game yet. The Philadelphia Eagles have not won a game in December yet. This is a team that was in the Super Bowl a year ago. Anybody can beat anybody in the league. So here's the upswing. If the Packers can find a way to win these last 3 games and make the NFL playoffs, let's have a subtle reminder of what I say on December 20th. Anybody can beat anybody in the NFL. And although the Packers will have to go on the road to do that in the wild card round of the playoffs, and that's a big if, they win these final 3 games. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're going to get there. But they could have a fun little run in store for us in the NFL playoffs. As long as Joe Barry can be a little competent, which, again, I don't count on that. But the offense has given us encouraging signs for the Packers. But on the flip side, something to also keep in mind is the Packers play the worst team in football this week in the Carolina Panthers on the road. And as I just said in the NFL, anybody can beat anybody. Maybe the Panthers have figured it out, and maybe they don't want to give the Bears the number 1 overall pick after trading for said number 1 overall pick a year ago. They can't just swap years. How much of a blow would that be to the Panthers? The Carolina Panthers aren't good. I'm comfortable saying that. But are we comfortable saying the Packers are good? I don't think so. So what I learned Monday night, more true than any other year. Anybody can beat anybody. And we've seen the Packers do that a few times. We've seen it happen to the Packers a few times. So that's what worries me, but both excites me about the remainder of the season and worries me about this upcoming Sunday. All right, that does it for us. Colin Russo, the other third of the trio for Sunday's Green Bay Game Day, going to join us Friday. Kind of recurring guest week. We had Chris Orr Monday, Colin Russo Friday. We're going to talk Christmas and movies and all that, but also we'll talk a little NFL. Russo also yesterday at the Marquette-Providence game in Rhode Island for some reason last night. So we're going to talk to Colin Russo about his trip to Rhode Island as well on Friday.
Do we have to talk about that game?
Well, I don't know that we'll actually talk about the game. Providence, always sneaky good. They are the definition in college basketball, sneaky good year after year.
I hated that game.
Wisconsin lost to Providence. Now Marquette lost to Providence. Providence scored 72 in both of those games. The Badgers scored 2 more points in a loss than Marquette. So for the second time this year, Wisconsin has beaten Marquette.
Yeah, just end the show.
All right, that does it for us. Thanks to Hunter. Thanks to Joshy. This has been Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. We'll talk to you on Friday.